Yesterday's game was obviously epic, legendary. The comeback was something that won't be forgotten. I think it's Utah's the win that Utah had that will stick with me the longest, or that is the most memorable at home since the Cam Rising USC ran in the 2-point conversion. Like, it just felt like a moment for Utah. Devin Dampier breaking off that 4th-and-1 big run, powering it in on 3rd-and-1. Like, it just felt like it was something memorable. But there's also a couple things that happened too. Number one, Kyle Whittingham got emotional in the press conference, talking about the senior class, how much he loves them. It's also a moment where him and Morgan Scalley shook hands. And Moose, there's just something yesterday that felt final about it. It felt like this was Kyle Whittingham's last ever home game. How did you feel watching? Because I genuinely do feel like that was his last game. I was starting to feel that going into it. And then based on everything played out, I feel like that was it for him, at least at home as the coach of the Utah Utes.
Yeah, I could see it, but I don't count my chickens before they hatch, to be honest with you. I can look at writing on the wall and say, hey, that's cool, but it might be the wrong language sometimes. And with Kyle, this is a very emotional senior class for him. You look at the linemen that came back that had the
Yeah.
opportunity to go other places. You look at the transfer
Well,
portal era.
oh, you talk about like those guys returning as instead of going pro, right?
Yes,
My
exactly.
apologies. You meant like transferring to other schools. I got you. My bad. Yeah, keep going.
Well, there's a plethora of different things that they could have done.
Mhm.
Everyone, this is a class that's super loyal to the University of Utah in an era where you don't have loyalty. When you do have Lander Barton coming back, when you do have a Smith Snowden, when you do have the Faunos, when you do have a John Henry Daly, like there's so many guys where you're just like, this is a phenomenal class. And I don't know if you're going to see very many like that again, to be honest with you. Because it used to be if you could get 50% of your class to senior day, it was an amazing class. Nowadays, if you can get 5 guys at the end of the day that you signed as high school freshmen, you're knocking it out of the park. And I think that Whittingham is finally in an era where he's got a great offense, he's got a phenomenal defense, he has everything going for him. And if this was his last game, he coached his tail off. And whatever he said in the locker room, probably inspired these boys to send him off on a win, just like other legendary coaches in the state, like Lavelle Edwards, where he had a win to end his career at home as well.
It's like I said, it felt fine with me yesterday. I also, Moose, you talk about how loyal this class was. Utah loses a lot. The odds of Utah being better next year than they were this year is tough. I don't know how you were, yeah, zero. Yeah, you say zero. Like, how do you replace all 5 offensive linemen and improve? Like, sure, defensive tackles should get better next year. Hopefully a healthy Damp here. So maybe he's a little better, but I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like this is as high as it's going to get, at least for the next year. Like, then at that point, probably talk about 27. If you want to be even better, maybe like when you hand it off to Bird. And that's not to say like Bird will be better than Devin. It's just like, I think Utah is probably 2 years away from being a top 4, like a top 3 Big 12 team. It's a tall road to climb like next year. How much do you think that weighs on Whittingham? Because next year could be I just don't think they'll be as good as they were next year, right?
No, I am very optimistic about Utah, but the losses are massive.
Massive.
You're losing 2 first rounders on the line. You're losing if John Henry Daly decides to bounce, that is a massive loss. If Smith Snowden goes, if you lose your safeties, like there's a lot of guys that are contributing that are either seniors or NFL draft ready. And so I think that Utah's going to be going into a rebuild. And I don't know if Witt wants to do a rebuild at this point in his career.
Yeah, I agree. I
Like,
don't think he does either. Yeah. I don't
yeah,
know if it'll be a full rebuild next year. Like, I still think they'll be I think they'll still be one of the top 6 teams in the Big 12, but like, we'll see if they're top 3. They have a lot to replace and retool, and we'll see if they get there. Were you going to add something, Moose?
yeah. Well, the other thing you got to take into account is these coaches are hot names right now. Utah's offensive line coach is a very hot name, not just in college circles, but NFL circles.
Yeah.
Jason Beck, what he's done at Utah this year, the improvement that's happened, you don't think SEC teams are going to be knocking down his door
Ugh.
with what he's done the last couple years? And Big Ten teams, like if Oregon loses their OC, you think Jason Beck isn't going to get a call to go up to be with Dan Lanning? Like, let's be honest here. There's a lot of things that I love about this program, and nationally, it should be loved because they're a top 12 team And they're doing it without a number one receiver or really a number two or three. We're having receivers pop up that were basically scout team guys
Yeah,
catching like
Creed Whittemore.
game winning.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, who is this dude? And they're like, with 8 catches on the season. And you're like, well, make it 9. But the scheme that's been done on offense and defense this season, it's probably one of the best coaching jobs I've seen. And the nation is taking notice. And with success, you're going to lose assistants.
That's scary. Yeah, you think it'll be hard for Utah to retain this staff for next year? This all the guys back?
It depends on what the boosters want to do. It
Yeah.
depends on how invested is this fan base in this program. And if they are invested, can we get the right chess pieces for these coaches to play with?
Yeah, and that'll be really interesting to see. You're starting to scare me with some of this future talk. So let's go back to the present, Moose.
Okay.
Yesterday was so incredible. I mean, I still can't believe this team found a way to win. Credit Devin Dampier for stepping up late and making plays. The Utah offense was pretty much always there, but even the defense with a couple of big stops after, I was just so impressed with the resolve and the grit and the fight for this team to send their seniors out the right way. What will you remember most about yesterday's incredible and in some ways legendary comeback?
Well, honestly, it was just coming out of halftime that I was most impressed with. Getting stops, getting 14 points basically off the bat and making this a game. And the wherewithal to even come back when you have like a John Henry Daly going down. And that is where a lot of your pressure comes from and where a lot of this team gets their wins. That was really impressive for guys to hunker down, understand their assignments, and then get it done at the level they needed to pull out a win.
And then Utah did. They pulled out a win somehow, despite the worst defensive rushing performance, like the worst defensive stopping the run performance this team has ever put on the field, literally in program history. And he did it in 3 quarters too. Kansas State did. When the question is like, what went wrong with Utah? I mean, they simply got their butt whooped on several occasions. I thought schematically there could have been some adjustments to try and slow things down, Moose. But what did you see? Like, why did Utah have their literally the worst rushing defense performance in the program's history?
Well, here's the thing. You look at what happened in the offseason. We lost a D tackle to BYU. We lost a D tackle to Washington. We've had injuries. I know Whittingham doesn't put injuries down ever, but you go through 10 weeks, you're banged up. And
Mhm.
especially when it comes to D line, where it's not like you're at corner where you're like, okay, I'm going to run a 9 or whatever. And like, patty cake, baker's man. You're sitting there and it's like, I am taking someone on every single down.
Mhm.
And so I think that the wear and tear with guys that we initially thought would be second or third string going into the season have finally caught up, and guys that weren't quite ready to contribute. And with John Henry Daly going down, that guard that had to be aware of what's going on in the edge, finally he's like, oh, I can just tee off on this 3 tech or this 0 tech and get some things done. And then we've seen the linebacker room has been a little bit thin as well. And so you're seeing a lot of just injuries piling up, even though they're not listed. You're seeing bumps and bruises really starting to take action in these games.
How is Samote Peppa doing at Washington? I just looked it up. He has 4 tackles on the year, but D tackle always a deceptive stat for that. Have you heard much about him?
No, I haven't watched a ton of Washington games, but I know last year defensive tackles were at a premium. So
Yes, they were.
if you're sitting there, you're like, hey, I'm a defensive tackle. I could be a late round draft pick. Why don't I get my payday right now? It makes sense.
Yeah, Utah missed Peppa clearly. Tafuna's another guy who went off to the NFL, and another one that just hurts to lose. But unfortunately, Utah, their run defense took a hit, but still found a way to win. That's what matters. But first, this episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at Wayfair. The holiday season is right around the corner, and it means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new lines, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help you make your space shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long with up to 70% off everything from sofas to spatulas. I recently upgraded my dining room and rug as well, and Wayfair completely transformed the room. If you've ever hosted your family for the holidays, you know know how much a difference a few nice touch-ups can make. Wayfair makes it that much easier. Don't miss out on early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale, up to 70% off your order too. That's wayfair.com, wayfair.com. Sale ends December 7th. Head to Wayfair right now for those Black Friday sale up to 70% off. You can check out Wayfair today. That's going to do it for today's Locked On News. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about Kyle Whittingham's press conference and getting you ready for the Utah Utes taking on the Kansas Jayhawks and already the last game of the regular season on tomorrow's show.